All right, thanks for joining us again. We hope this is one of your very favorite hockey-related podcasts. This, of course, is Wooden Sticks. My name is Kevin Gorg, the host of the show here on the vast and ever-expanding Talk North podcast network. As always, recording today from the Aquarius Home Services studio on the heels of another magical edition of the Minnesota State High School Hockey Tournament on the boys' side. I mentioned on the TV broadcast over the weekend that I've been attending this tournament now for 50 plus years, and it just never disappoints. Aside from having the opportunity to work on the broadcast side, which was an absolute thrill, and I hadn't done that in many years because the Wild are almost always out of town and I'm tied up this weekend, just being in the building and seeing the unbelievable talent of these high school players on both the Class A and Double A side, seeing the teams that ended up getting to the tournament and the great games as they unfolded, including the crescendo that was both the overtime classic for East Grand Forks title game against the defending Class A champions from St. Cloud Cathedral, and then the rich and thick storylines of the Double A championship with Stillwater and Moorhead, both teams having never won a state tournament, Moorhead having 21 trips there and the 0 for 8 in the title game. I just, the individual talent on the ice from Mason Kraft, who ends up being Mr. Hockey and scores 4 goals in the opening round game, a goal in the semifinal game, and then 4 goals in the first period of that title match against Stillwater. And then I just was mesmerized by Mason West of Edina. I got to tell you, you hate to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Like, you sometimes watch high school hockey and you wonder. Like, I watched Brock Nelson at Warroad way back in the day, and I wonder, but I'm like, man, he sure looks like a guy that can not only be a D1 player but could be a pro player. I have no doubts. Like, I have literally no doubt in my mind that this creature that I saw wearing number 9 in green and gold for the Edina Hornets is going to be on that big stage one day playing National Hockey League games. I was just taken back by his skill and his engine, because Kurt Giles played him a bunch in a lot of these big games throughout the tournament, and he just kept delivering. So, I, like any sports fan, I'm attracted to greatness. The tournament is always great. And then within these state tournaments, we get to see greatness in some of this individual talent. And, I could list a bunch of names, but it to me, it was all about the two Masons. Mason Kraft carrying his Moorhead Spuds to a championship, and Mason West looking like an NHL player to be dropped into play against high school kids. He was, he's 6'6", he's big, he's strong, he's the quarterback on the football team, and just unbelievable skill. And then the goaltending in this tournament, again, remarkable talent up and down these rosters, but these goalies just so good. And had a chance to connect with a goaltender from St. Cloud Cathedral, Keaton Legrand, and got to know his mom and dad and grandpa throughout the weekend. They would stop over at the set, and it was heartbreaking. I mean, just to see that game, you hate to see any game that goes overtime end on a fluky goal like that from the sidewall, basically on the goal line extended. But knowing what a great tournament this kid had, and then eventually he would be named to the all-tournament team, and rightfully so, to see that heartbreak, and he basically just collapsed outside the crease. And having played that position, you get too much credit when you win, and you get too much blame when you lose. And I know he was feeling just awful at that point. Luckily, I connected with his mother on Facebook because she had some pictures that we were going to use for our broadcast. So I sent her a quick little direct message, honestly, 5 minutes after that game got over, saying, "Hey, can you send me Keaton's cell number? I want to send him a nice message and try to help him through this, what had to be a horrific time in his life as a goaltender that just lost a state championship on a play like that." And so I was able to connect with Keaton via text, and showing the class of this kid during the Double-A championship game. Lo and behold, Keaton Legrand stopped by our broadcast position, and we had a chance to meet face to face. And I hope that he will use me as a resource moving forward. I offered up any help I can give him down the road to connect with, college coaches, junior hockey, whatever he has on his plate down the road as a young aspiring goaltender to be and student athlete to be. So one of the great memories for me this weekend in the state tournament. I want to thank both Pat O'Connor and Brian Monahan specifically, our producer and director of these games on Channel 45. They were the ones that got me this incredible opportunity. And, we all know Lou Nanny did it for 60 years and did it better than anybody could hope to do it. And, no one was looking to replace Lou. As I mentioned to Louie on the wild road trip that I started on, we started in Seattle last week and ended in Vancouver. And I was only going to be a part of the first half of that trip. And I told Louie at dinner in Seattle that, you were so damn good, it's going to take 3 of us to try to replace you. And he had a big old grin on his face and a chuckle. And I asked him, I said, are you going to miss it? Like when you're working the wild game in Vancouver this weekend, are you going to have FOMO? And, Louis has always been a guy that's had a lot of conviction. I think that's why he's been so successful in everything he's ever done. And he said, no, he goes, it was my time to leave and I knew it was. And I'm happy that I did. And then we got in an argument about overtime because he never enjoyed overtime. He was happy if the game ended on time. And I'm always looking when I broadcast a hockey game, especially on a state tournament side, to see extra time, and especially in championship one and done scenarios, if you can get, multiple overtimes, it's even better. So we definitely disagreed on that side of things, but it was great to have his blessing and have that opportunity. And I want to thank all the different hockey fans that reached out on my Twitter handle at Gorgomatic21 and had such nice things to say about our broadcast and the tournament itself, because it reminded me again, going back to when I first attended. We're talking, late 1970s. I was a 6 or 7 year old when my dad first took me down there, and it was unbelievable. It was heaven to me, and I was just in awe of the experience. And every year, I told the story on the TV side. Every Thursday, from first grade all the way through junior high, my dad would get me out of school if my grades were good and I wasn't being an idiot at school. And we'd spend the whole day and night in St. Paul. We'd go to the day games, go to Gallivan's in between. My dad was a local golf pro. We'd go down there with all the golf pro cronies and have dinner, and they'd tell a few lies and have a few laughs. And we go back for the night session, and 4 hockey games in one day, and the magic and the cheerleaders and the bands and the souvenirs and all the different novelties at the game and the popcorn. It's just the event itself. It still has it. And I can verify that from walking around St. Paul last week. 20,400 plus at the AA game on Saturday night tells you exactly where high school hockey is right now. And if you're a young hockey player, if you're a family member that's got either a nephew or a niece or a son or a daughter, remind them of this. If they're good enough to be I'll go back to Mason West of Edina, number 9. If you're good enough to be a Division I or pro player, you're going to get there no matter what. Don't ever, in my opinion, take away the opportunity to be a part of high school hockey in Minnesota. There is nothing like it anywhere else in the world. And the state tournament, if you're lucky enough to be a part of that, is something that you will smile about the rest of your life. I told this story also on the broadcast, and it's no BS over the weekend. I'm 58 years old now. We just celebrated our 40-year anniversary of our state championship. I can promise you there hasn't really been a day that's gone by where at some point, if I just didn't have even 30 seconds of a happy, warm, fuzzy feeling, sometimes longer if a song came on the radio or if there's a highlight on TV of tournaments gone by, where I didn't think back to that time in my life with my buddies, the guys I grew up with, guys I'm still friends with, like Paul Lewis and Mike Luckcraft, that are a part of my daily conversations, whether it's text or on the phone. What a time in your life. Don't ever cheat yourself of that. You'll get where you need to go, I promise you. And you'll never regret playing high school hockey in Minnesota. It was incredible. And I'm going to get off my soapbox now and move on because we've got a great guest today, and I'm really excited to welcome him into the show. His name is Zach Halverson, White Bear Lake guy, a part of the radio broadcast throughout the weekend here at the state tournament last weekend, did a phenomenal job. A fixture on the Power Trip morning show here in the Twin Cities on KFAN, unbelievably successful. One of the real few giants in the game in terms of radio. And Zach has the bug, man. He's got the passion for the game of hockey, and I have so much respect for the way he treats it and the way he goes about his business. So I can't wait to hear his story today. We're going to get to know Zach a little bit and talk about not only his journey so far, but hopefully where this journey is going to head, because I think sky's the limit for him. He's a great kid, and I call him a kid even though he's an adult because I'm so old, so you get the bit. All right, enough about that. We'll get to Zach here as quick as we can. But first of all, John Schweitz and my good friends with Minnesota Masonic Charities, we need to have a tip of the hat to our partners here. They've got the Cancer Center. They've, of course, got that unbelievable Children's Hospital. And they also have the Masonic Home in Bloomington. They're part of the largest fraternal organization on the planet. They consistently, guys, they answer the call when it comes to charitable needs. So think of John Schweitz and Minnesota Masonic Charities for all their great work, and we appreciate them being a part of our show here on Wooden Sticks. And of course, hey, weather's warming up. We're thinking about getting back outdoors. Nobody better than OnX Maps.
We've told you about OnX Hunt. Now let me tell you about OnX Fish. Ice fishing is here, and it's time to hit the frozen water with OnX Fish. The Fish app is the most comprehensive fishing tool for increasing your confidence on ice. Use OnX Fish to find new places to fish and sort lakes by species, abundance, trophy, and keeper potentials. OnX Fish also shows you hot spots, lake-by-lake regulations, and private and public land ownership information. For a limited time, download OnX Fish for free in Minnesota and Wisconsin, or go to onxmaps.com/fish to get more information on the app that is changing the game on ice.
And finally, really looking forward to going back and seeing my good friends Eric and Joey over at Insight Brewing. What a beautiful tap room they have. And with the weather warming up, who knows? They might have those garage doors up. It might be air flowing through, sports on the TV, beer specials. I don't know, but the live show is next week. It's coming quick now. Thursday, the 20th. It starts at 7 o'clock. You're welcome to come early. We'll have all kinds of great options as far as specials go. We'll have food trucks available for you, and our special guest will be none other than Michael Russo. It's crunch time in the National Hockey League with Eck, Brodin, and Kaprizov waiting in the wings. We'll dial in on when that might happen for your Minnesota Wild and what the prognosis is, not only for this season, but Bill Guerin and that staff, what they can do in the offseason, where the money's going to go, how this team can be a big-time contender next year as well. Michael Russo from Insight Brewing next week on Thursday the 20th. You're not going to want to miss it. Hey, thank you to our new partner, Insight Brewing. They are located over in Northeast Minneapolis. The Insight Tap Room features 25 tap lines of rotating beers, THC seltzers, non-alcoholic beverages, local food trucks, and so much more. Insight has a 120-inch projection screen, and they will be showing all of the Minnesota Wild games throughout the season. You can also join Wooden Sticks at Insight Brewing at the tap room once a month for live shows featuring special guests, watch parties, hot takes, and of course, cold beer. You want to guarantee your seat? I got good news there too. Visit insightbrewing.com to request a free reservation. For a full list of other events, the food truck schedule, new beer releases, and more, follow at Insight Brewing on your favorite social media platforms and stay up to date. Thank you again, my friends over at Insight Brewing. Up next, speaking of not wanting to miss it, we have Halvy, Zach Halverson from KFAN. All right, welcome back to Wooden Sticks. As always, we are recording today from the Aquarius Home Services studio. Super excited for my hockey chat today with my dear friend. We call him Halvy. It is Zach Halverson from the Power Trip Morning Show. Halvy, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. This is awesome.
Well, what a weekend. You know, I think you and I have a lot in common, but especially the love we have for high school hockey. And, you know, I think of state tournaments, and I've watched over 5 decades worth in my lifetime. This one has to be right up there. One of the best hockey tournaments I've been a part of. And you were on the radio side. I was on the TV side. It was just spectacular fun.
Yeah. I mean, all the new teams, the new programs that we got to see this year, and then obviously they put on a good show. Class A and Class AA had phenomenal semifinal and final rounds, and I think I leave that building every year feeling very, very lucky to not only obviously get to do the work that I get to do, but also just to have this in our backyard, to have this special thing year in and year out that we can set our calendars to every early March, that we're going to see a really special thing we have here in Minnesota.
And you've got to be so prepared. I look at Jim Erickson on the TV side that, he does the play-by-play and you're doing it on the radio, and you've got 16 different teams in this tournament, all kinds of different key players. And, Jimmy Erickson made a good point. He's like, there's no way that I can come into a tournament like this and know every roster top to bottom. But if I know the key guys and have that roster in my hand, I can kind of adjust on the fly. How do you look at that task? Because, Zach, I've done play-by-play, and it's by far the hardest thing I've ever done. It is stressful. Hockey moves so fast. You have to know the guys on the weak side that don't have the puck. And as well as I know, at the XL Center, you're a mile away. It's a great vantage point, but you're way the hell up there. How do you prepare?
Yeah, we've talked with Jim in the past about how he prepares, and I've heard stories of him basically locking himself in a room for like 14 hours a day to not taking any calls or texts or anything. He just straight up reads through roster after roster, stat, all that stuff. And I have great respect for Jim and what he does, because he really does take this as serious as anybody could in terms of delivering the proper information to the state of hockey. So I give him all the credit in the world. Obviously I do my best in the week of, it's tough because you don't know the teams until all the teams really until the Friday before. So, but the emails really start getting sent out to coaches, and thankfully pretty much every coach other than a notable one is pretty nice in terms of getting us information and stuff that we need to do the broadcast. I've got the help of Danny Ryan, our color commentator, works for Youth Hockey Hub, and he went to over 70 high school hockey games this year. He is as connected as anybody in the world. So if I have a question or need any sort of help on pronunciations or whatever it is about any of these teams, I mean, he's seen every single one of them, often multiple times before they even get to St. Paul. So he is a great human resource, as well as, of course, the various websites and stuff. It's a little different, obviously, when you get to college. You have an SID you can talk to, or professional hockey league. We have multiple people that is their job to deliver that information, and obviously we're dealing with just the coaching staffs of each team. But I think that's what makes it special. And then obviously when you get to the game side of things, the trick too is balancing the information that you prepared and the teams and the names of the players, but also recognizing that it is a radio audience. And so most of the audiences listening on the radio aren't going to know a lot of these players. And so in real time, and if you're listening somewhat close, you'll notice that at least from the radio side, I am calling the teams and their names as opposed to the player names more often, because while you might know while Zuccarello skates it into the zone, Joe Donald doesn't need to worry about saying the Wild's Zuccarello has the puck. You don't have to do that because everybody knows who Matt Zuccarello is, mostly listening to the radio, where even Mason Kraft might not be a household name in the high school hockey or just really hockey world in general. So as you're listening, driving around your car, my job really is to say Moorhead has the puck, they enter the zone, it's Mason Kraft, to really clarify which team has the puck, which team has scored. It's a bit of a challenge because you want to certainly give the kids more credit than just the team, but you recognize that it's a special, unique thing, and there's a lot of people listening and a lot of people interested. They just don't know, don't have the history of the teams going into it like they would maybe a higher level of play.
And I appreciate that because, there were stretches, I worked a couple of night shifts, and during the day I was actually driving around, preparing, getting my dry clean, doing whatever I'm doing to run errands. And I don't have every roster memorized, so to mention that team name a little more frequently, I think it's excellent, especially with high school coverage, to help the listener get a feel for who has the puck, who's attacking, what's going on, and all the good stuff that goes along with these games. Now, when it comes to big moments in broadcast, and I'll go back to one of my favorite Masters, which is probably now almost 20 years old, when Phil Mickelson, who had been so close to winning a major in all these tournaments, and especially at Augusta, finally got it done. He had a 15-foot putt on 18. And I look at Jim Nantz right now as probably the best that we have available in terms of sports broadcasting as a lead. Now that Vin Scully has passed away, I think Jim's the best out there. And the putt was halfway there, and he said, "Is it finally his time?" And there was a crescendo to the end of that turn when the puck hit the cup and went down for Phil Mickelson for that first major at Augusta. And I loved your line at the end of the Moorhead Spuds run in their 21st state tournament. Really the story of this year's tournament that will always be remembered is Moorhead finally breaking through. And you came up with the 0 for 8 was worth the wait. And I'm certain that you had to think about that before you got to the rink. How did you come up with it?
Driving home somewhere on 35 and I think Cayuga. On the way home the night before, I was thinking about, and I wasn't even thinking about, what I was going to say or the call. I was just thinking about the streak and how it would be so cool to be, on the call at the end. And so, yeah, it just popped in my head the night before, and I made a mental note of it. I think I even wrote it down in my my notes app on my phone just to make sure I didn't forget it. And then, of course, you get to the game the next night, and I think I wrote the word "worth" on the roster sheet just to make sure I didn't forget it in the moment. And so yeah, it was obviously a special night for Moorhead. I've got obviously great respect for Jim Nantz and what he does, and so it's nice to have that luxury of a big potential historical moment, and certainly the way Stillwater played that third period, it was looking maybe like that curse that they like to call it would continue, but credit the Spuds for hanging on, and it was cool to have that opportunity to see that streak end. Now there's another streak that someday I would like to see end involving a orange, black, and white team. Speaking of 21st state tournament, 0 for 20 in the quarterfinals for White Bear Lake. So maybe someday I'll have something cooked up for that. But for now, just happy to see the Spuds finally break free and get that state championship.
And when you do play-by-play, especially on something like KFan, you have to be, you have to be non-partial. You have to kind of paint the picture. And you've done a good job with over the years some of those White Bear Lake games. We all know your passion for the Bears, but you have to separate that sometimes when you're calling a game. And I don't know how you were during that championship game, but I can tell you, I didn't have a dog in the fight. Stillwater had yet to win a championship. I had some friends on their side with Zanin, Manic, and Staylock. And then I look at, the Cullen family, and I have so much respect for Moorhead. I think it was the better story. So I was kind of pulling for Moorhead, but I always want overtime. I'm one of the few people in that building that truthfully loves overtime. There's something extra special, Zach, about a championship game in hockey that goes overtime. I think back to when the Gophers won an NCAA championship in that exact same building on that goal by Patolny to beat the Maine Black Bears. I think about the day we were doing the championships last Saturday in East Grand Forks, albeit on a very strange goal from the goal line. That's pretty cool. So as much as I wanted Moorhead to win, I don't know how you were feeling during your broadcast, but when it got to be 7-6, I'm like, I wouldn't mind overtime as long as you tell me Moorhead's still going to win the game. How were you looking at that third period as that whole thing was coming together?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, historically, I've been pro overtime the entire tournament, and I don't know, something maybe turning 30 changed that a little bit this year when it came to the 4 games a day and getting to game number 4 and going, oh, okay, maybe we don't need the extra sessions. So oddly enough, when it came to Moorhead and Edina, I think in the past I would have been disappointed to see the Spuds score that late third period goal with a minute left to eventually beat the Hornets, where this year after I think that would have been 8 games in 2 days. I was definitely more okay with signing off at the end of regulation, but obviously in a championship Saturday when we're only doing 2 games and all that, I'm definitely pro overtime, and certainly wouldn't mind to have seen it. With Moorhead, the crazy thing is, I had something in the afternoon a few weeks ago when Hill Murray was hosting Moorhead at Aldridge Arena. And it was the game of the year easily. It wasn't even close. It was 1 versus 2. They were going back and forth, and then Moorhead got out to a 7-4 lead in the middle of the 3rd period, and Hill Murray came back. I got there just in time for that 3rd period, and watched the comeback in front of my eyes. And Hill Murray came back. They tied it late in the 3rd, and then ended up winning 8-7 in overtime. So to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, deja vu. Are we about to see Moorhead again having a 7-4 lead, and then a Section 4 opponent? I thought, even at the time I was talking to people, I thought for sure we would see Moorhead and Hill Murray back at it again a few Saturdays later, and ended up being the team that beat Hill Murray in Stillwater. And so it was, to me, from just, obviously rooting a little bit for overtime, happy with either result, but, disappointed certainly wouldn't be the word, but, there was definitely a little bit of me that was maybe rooting to see the Ponies perhaps find that late equalizer and have us a little bit more hockey. But what a finish it was, and that certainly was not looking like it was going to be the case when we went to 5-1 and at the end of the first. And credit all the Zanin and his boys over in Stillwater for never giving up and playing that game until the very end.
Yeah, 2 fantastic championship games, and just an unbelievable tournament with the crowds that I'd never seen. I mean, almost 21,000 people at that AA championship game. It really had a great atmosphere. Let's go back to when you were a little guy. I feel your passion every time I talk to you. I know how much you love the game of hockey. How old were you, Zach, as a youngster when you first decided to come to the game, and what was the precipice? What drew you to hockey?
I don't know exactly. I would probably say my father more than anything. He loved the game, and grew up playing, and then would be the big super fan up at Anoka, driving up to the deck to watch his Tornadoes play in section play and all that. And he's always had a passion for the game, and so he's the one who was bringing me to the Coliseum when it was like, if I'm not mistaken, that was one of my first hockey games, was a section game at the old State Fair Coliseum, which, please, somebody bring hockey back there. My goodness.
Yes.
It's hard to believe it's been well over a decade now since we've had it there. But that was, I think if I were to pick a place where I fell in love with the game, that would be the building, because those games were unlike anything else I still have never seen again. But and so, yeah, it was those games. It was the community aspect. That's why I really am so passionate about high school in particular. Is I love the Bears. I love the community of White Bear Lake, and I loved watching them go from playing in a barn with 200 people on a Tuesday night in December to potentially going all the way to St. Paul and playing on a Thursday night in front of 18,000. So that's where the love of the game really came from, was watching and interacting with the high school coach, Tim Sager, at the time. We did a hockey camp in the summer when I was a squirt, and I don't know. I just fell in love with everything about it. And then, knew fairly early on that, there was not going to be much of a advancement in the skill side of my game. So, I always loved watching it on television, or listening to it on the radio. In fact, I remember, recording wild broadcasts onto a tape on the radio, and actually doing my own pregame and throwing it to Curtsy and stuff when I was 8, 9, 10 years old. I was a nerd, but I've just I don't know what it is. I've always loved broadcasting. I had a great passion for broadcasting, and I've always always love hockey, and it just it's been a great marriage, putting those two together over the years, and just been a lot of fun.
So my hockey hero, and this is way, way before your time, was a guy named Gilles Malage, who at the time I went to my first North Star game at the Met Center. He was playing for the California Golden Seals. And my dad, that particular day, the North Stars were a terrible team at the time. We got tickets down kind of behind the goalie, and I was a little kid. I was probably 6. And I fell in love with this Gilles Malage character. He would go on to play for the Cleveland Barons, and then eventually they would merge with the Minnesota North Stars. So he became the North Stars goalie, which really put this whole thing into where I completely obsessed over the guy. So was there a hockey hero you had as a youngster that you looked up to? It doesn't have to be a pro player. Maybe it was a White Bear Lake guy. Maybe it was a college guy. But who was your first hockey hero?
Oddly enough, Darby Hendrickson.
That's a great pick.
Yeah, I was such a fan of his, and if I remember waiting, we waited like, I don't know, upwards of an hour or so after a game, because we had this opportunity to kind of stand after the game down by the elevators where the players leave the tunnel, leave the building, I should say. And he had gotten hurt or something in that game, and so they were just about to kick us out. Like the guy was just about to say like, "Hey, we gotta go." When Darby came around the corner, and I'll never forget that. And so, Darby was my favorite. I remember waking up, finding out that he had been traded to Colorado. And I remember like crying on the way to school in the school bus, because I was so devastated. But, and it was kind of came full circle. A summer or two ago, we had this charity hockey game, crazy game of hockey, where he was playing on the same team as me, and we got a picture, and it was really, really cool to see him. And so Darby Hendrickson would be certainly my hockey hero from the early days.
Well, and it's funny when you have these heroes growing up, and you get a chance to finally meet them, you're still kind of in awe of them, and it's so nice when they live up to your, I don't know, passion for what they've done and what they've meant to your journey in hockey. And I got the chance to meet Gilles Malage both as a youngster at a car dealership. They used to do these little photo opportunities, and he was so nice. But then later in life, like you, I got to be a part of a charity game. I was the sideline reporter at that North Star Blackhawks alumni game at the Gopher Football Stadium, and he was just awesome to work with. And so for you to meet Darby, I know the answer, but I mean, he just is one of the most genuinely nice human beings. So that had to be, it had to make you feel awfully good about your selection as a kid.
Yeah, no, the whole never meet your heroes thing. I don't think certainly is not universal, because Darby, a very stand-up guy, and a little weird seeing him when the Predators came to town earlier this year in that capacity. Certainly miss seeing him around the rink, but no, he's there's a stand-up dude, and it was really, really cool, not only getting to meet him as a kid, but also getting to skate with him as well later on.
And we're going to get into the Power Trip Morning Show. We've got Zach Halverson here on Wooden Sticks, and always fun to hear different hockey journeys. But the Power Trip we'll get to, but I know that for our listeners that you need to kind of explain that you've got a role each and every Wild home game at the XL Center. So you're up early, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. You're helping run that wildly successful Power Trip Morning Show on the Fan, but you also have duties at night. And so take us through your broadcast evening, how, dealing with Kevin Fallness, which can't be easy, and working with Joe O'Donnell and of course the Silver Fox, Tom Reed.
Yeah, it really is the coolest gig in the world. I get to basically get there about 2-3 hours before the game, set the headsets up. We have a permanent a setup for the home games for our stuff, so that the talent stations, that's where the on-off buttons are for the microphones. So when Tom or Joe have to cough, they have their own dedicated area to call the game from. I put the headsets in there, I test them out, listen for some of the other feeds we get to make sure that they're working, and then at that point it's the waiting for puck drop, assuming everything works, and 99.99% of the time it does, and the other times we're running up and down the stairs and trying to figure something out here and there. But for the most part, it works out great. And then the game is going on. I'm just adjusting volume levels throughout of the various feeds we're getting, including the famous effects feed, the sounds of hockey,
Yes.
as PA would call it, and so that's fun to be able to listen. I think even the last game, an official accidentally turned his microphone on, so we were able to hear probably more stuff up there that we were supposed to be, but it was a cool kind of peek behind the curtain, and thankfully nobody swore till after we sent it to break, so that was that was good. So yeah, and then after I go down to the locker room, get some audio from the players that we send back to Kevin to play in the post game, and then it's clean everything up and get done. But yeah, it's awesome. Get to sit next to Joe and Tom and yes, Kevin, and we get to watch the game and bring it to the airwaves of the Twin Cities and beyond on the largest radio network in the league.
Yeah, Wild Radio Network. It's phenomenal. And have you allowed yourself to dream about what it might be like here in the next few years if this team goes on a run that ends up in the Stanley Cup? Because everything we do around the rink, all of our jobs revolves around this team, and every one of our jobs, Zach, is more enjoyable exponentially when the team is doing well. And to have this team go on that type of run, I watched it a couple of times as a North Star fan, not as a broadcaster, but can you imagine setting up all that stuff, getting the gear ready, going in and out of the locker room at morning skate or at the the post game with all those interviews when it's the actual Stanley Cup? And for a guy like you that loves the game of hockey so much, what that experience would be like?
Yeah, it's funny because just imagining as you were talking about it, I don't know if I've ever even really imagined, what it would be like to just have the cup in the building on its own like that. That to me point. Is what a sight that would be. And we dream of it and it just, year in and year out, coming up short, but one of these years you'd have to think it will break through here and the opportunity to continue to work into the summer. We had I did obviously not with the Wolves Radio Network, but I did some work with the Fan and covering the Wolves and that run and seeing the excitement in that building and seeing what that was like. It certainly made me far hungrier for something to happen on the east side of the river here, and I think we're getting close. We're getting close, and I hope to see it because the idea of all the differences. We already have someone like the national TV people come in. You got to work around them, but the opportunity to see see the big games again here in St. Paul, where it's just the entire town is tuning in and watching and following. And you got the added presentation elements, the projectors, and everything else. It's something to certainly continue to dream about, and hopefully someday, sooner than later, that becomes reality.
So I've loved watching your journey as a young broadcaster, and it just hearing you again this year. The cool thing is, in and around the building, if you're in the elevators, if you go use the restroom at the XL Center, anytime during the tournament, you guys were on. It was fabulous to have that broadcast on. Really cool to see how well you're doing. Is there a broadcaster, as you decided to work your way into this field, is there a hockey, or maybe it's just a guy like Jim Nantz that does all the sports that you looked up to, or maybe used as a role model or mentor just to watch their work and to figure out that this is somebody that if you can have a little bit of their success, then you'll be happy with where your journey ends up?
I mean, there are multiple. Obviously, I've got tremendous respect for it, and I guess I'll begin with just the fact that watching you and Anthony and what you guys did and how you worked your butts off to get to where you guys are now. I certainly took that as inspiration. I started in cable access when I was 12 years old. I think roughly the same, somewhat equivalent place. Obviously, it's changed since Anthony was there back in the day, but still watching. And then now, thankfully, with the benefit of YouTube, we can watch those old high school games that Anthony and then eventually, obviously, you joined in as well. So that certainly was, an inspiration watching you guys climb through the ranks and go from, and I've heard that your stories of driving and even with the hockey day stuff and nearly crashing and I mean, it's
nearly dying, by the way.
Yes, yeah. The story that you guys, the stories that you guys have, I'm certainly were really cool to hear, and then obviously, there's the other voices. There's obviously Doc Emmerich, who
Yes.
I just miss dearly on the call. He, just watching some of the old, especially around like the Four Nations face-off, watching some of the old clips from back in the day, even the Olympics and what he brought that to life. Doc is incredible, and certainly wish him the continued best in retirement. But and then I would also throw Gary Thorne in the mix too, because man, his pipes and he was really nice. I had to do a school project back in the day where I had to interview somebody in my dream career field, which for a lot of people it's a little easier. You can call like a local plumber, or if you're a business person or whatever. And and actually, oddly enough, I did get a hold of Anthony LaPanta, and we did that. But it just happened to coincide with the Frozen Four in the Twin Cities back in 2011. And I ended up running into Gary, who's calling it for ESPN, and I asked him, and he told me to give him a call at his St. Paul hotel room, and I did the interview. I actually did a double career project there, talked to two different people in the field, and it was really, really cool to be able to talk directly to Gary and obviously to LaPanta as well.
Yeah, and back to Doc Emmerich, I mean, I wish he would have stayed too long, because he left at the top of his game, and if he would have stayed too long, we would have got another 5 or 10 years out of him. And I just thought that games felt bigger when he was on the mic. He enhanced my experience of the biggest games on the planet. So you mentioned the Four Nations face-off. I can't imagine. I mean, they were great. They were incredible. But if Doc Emmerich would have been calling those games, they would have been to another complete level, because that's how good he was. So I think, to me, that's the top of the mountain, but that's what the broadcast can mean to any event. Like, you can make it either better or worse by the talent you bring, the work you put in behind the scenes. And Zach, to me, at least in our era here, the modern era of the NHL, it doesn't get any better than Doc Emmerich.
No. I mean, obviously the current main broadcasters are great. Love Mr. Albert and McDonough, and I think
Sure.
these guys are great. But it's just there was something about that voice of his, that and overall just that passion. And I just happened to watch, like, last week, this HBO Real Sports Brian Gummel story on Doc and his upbringing, and that was a homegrown just passion for the sport that he happened to, I think, go to a game and just fell in love with it, and he was the one that was sitting with a tape recorder calling game in, game out to himself to work on his craft, and then the his ability to paint that picture with an incredible vocabulary, because that's one thing, especially notice when you're doing a high school hockey tournament, is 4 games in a day, and it's impossible not to repeat yourself over and over again. There's only so many ways to describe certain plays, but I'm confident that had Doc ever done the tourney, that he would have never repeated himself over the 10, 12 games he would have done over the weekend. So I'm just not only the talent, but the intelligence and the performance art that he put on. It's just the classic deal where when his voice cracks the microphone, that this is a big deal, and it's certainly missed around these parts, but man, what a way to go out for him too as well, just to go out with on top there.
Yeah, he was the best. And you mentioned LaPanta and I getting our start on local cable, which we did in the early 1990s at a place called KABL out of White Bear Lake. And we would do local high school games. I remember vividly, my parents were excited that I was able to broadcast. They're like, "When can I see it?" And I'd be like, "Well, we're on tape delay. You gotta find this weird channel at like 2 a.m. And they were trying to like set their VCRs to tape these games. But we would do a really cool show called Prep Sports Weekly, and it was an hour-long Sports Center style magazine show. And during the hockey season, LaPanta would have me drive in to White Bear Lake to the studio there in at KABL and do these magazine shows where we'd show the standings and all the highlights from the week before. It was unbelievable. And LaPanta was kind of the producer, the director, the engine. Like, he put the whole thing together, and I'd come in and be his analyst. Is that studio, maybe it's a different name now, but is that old studio still over in White Bear Lake?
My guess is that it is. Suburban Community Channels is what it's known now, SEC. Yep. And when I started was with On Location TV 19, the channel itself, because they had the studio stuff, and then the remote production truck, which is where I made my start. I think my first ever gig there was a Tartan High School coronation, where I brought a big camera in that was about as heavy as I was, and set it up, but that the goal obviously the whole time was to get to the get on in front of the camera and get on the call. And I think I found, I'm trying to remember exactly, this was years ago, but I did find some old tapes, and I was like, what is KABL? And then I ended up finding out later on. And so like I said, the beauty of YouTube is finding those old broadcasts, and I can't even imagine the amount of work it was. Like, it's hard enough for us these days with the the benefit of the hockey hubs and the legacy hockeys and the resources that you can just go in and find all this information, where you guys were, I have just a tremendous amount of respect for what y'all put together back in the day, because it's really fun to watch, to see those old tapes and just the great presentation. And to that credit, by the way, the old high school hockey games of the weeks that you guys did on Fox Sports Net in the late 2000s.
That's just right.
It was so cool watching that big, huge TV truck pull up for for a game on a Tuesday night, where you're just barely able to get the cameras in there. And it was a good time back in the day when we saw more of that on TV. Now, obviously, most of the games are streaming now, which is great. But I'm still nostalgic to the early days of the old cable access and beyond.
Yeah, me too. It was a different time for sure, and the streaming is far more convenient now. People can see a lot more games and all over the country if they've got relatives here and there, and that part's really cool. But I do miss some of the old school variety of having the truck there, having to do all the work, and it was a different time for certain. And now the resources have changed, but that's where we got our start. Now we got to close this conversation with the Power Trip Morning Show on the Fan. Every day, 5:30 to 9. I know people are pretty much dialed into this whole thing. I ironically, as we record, we set this up a couple days ago, but as we record this middle of the week, I was over at the station today doing our PGA draft for the players this weekend, and get a little taste of what you guys. I guess the beauty of your guys' show, and along with Corey Cove, Paul Lambert. Of course, we call him Meat Sauce and the Hawk, Chris Hockey, along with yourself, Zach, is it's unscripted, and it's out there. Today we got into mermaids, and are they real, and do you want to date them or do you want to eat them? And I'm sitting there wondering, like, where is this conversation taking us? Carly Zucker was in there. Alexis Pearson, our dear friend, was in there, and the conversation's just going 18 different directions. How has this journey been with these guys for you? And I can't imagine every day having the pressure, because I've filled in on different shows for both Common and PA, and I got to tell you, it's 3 hours, and I'm not kidding you. I mean this sincerely. I am exhausted, and when you add in the fact that you're getting there as early in the morning as you guys are, and you have to be funny and you have to be on. How do you guys do it every day? I can't get it.
It's really cool. I give them all the credit in the world, and certainly today was a shining example of how tough it can be when it comes to wrapping up a Wild game that of course goes to a shootout on Tuesday night, and we're adding an extra half hour or so into the evening, and then just getting home after those games. I can get home at around 11 o'clock, but the adrenaline, everything, it's very hard to come down no matter how tired you are to get into a sleeping capacity. So I still probably didn't fall asleep until closer to midnight, and then 4 hours later the alarm goes off, and we're back at it. So it's an interesting thing that the late nights and the early mornings certainly clash at times. Summers can be certainly a lot easier when it comes to all that, but wouldn't trade what I have got going on in the world. And then the great thing is you go in there and these guys, I mean, it's been 25, 26 years now of this, almost 25 years, I should say, of this program that they built from the ground up. Corey and Hawk in particular, I mean, they went through so many different chapters of this journey where it started out as kind of a hardcore sports show and callers and everything, but to their credit, they evolved and bringing on Sauce, and then making it far more of a full service morning show with a touch of sports as opposed to a sports show with a touch of random. It is we never know what we're going to get. Carly brought up a great point that I always bring up, especially on sometimes there's Monday mornings after major Vikings games where you would think that maybe somebody's going to tune in from wherever, Cleveland, to say what the Minnesota sports radio station is talking about the Monday morning after this colossal Vikings game. And we are talking something like mermaids or some random thing that hockey saw that we're riffing on and improving on. And so it's a cool show to be a part of. It's perfect for me because I do love sports, Kevin, but it's not my entire life. I've got, we've all got other interests as well. And I don't think I could work on a total 100%, traditional sports talk show that we see all over the country. But I think that's, why we are so popular in this market, why we, have via iHeartRadio and the app and other forums, YouTube as well, reached a broader audience outside of the Twin Cities. We've got this guy, Andy, that is in England that loves the show. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to meet him yet, but Andy's awesome too, and he's listening from London. So it's really cool. I love the fact that I can still keep my roots in sports radio and at a station that I've been listening to since forever. I mean, I've memories of in the back of my dad's Oldsmobile Cutlass on the way home from daycare, listening to Dan Barrera, which he didn't necessarily appreciate that when I told him a few years ago. But I've been listening to this station for my entire life, and the fact that I've been there for and been able to not only work there but also be there for as long as I have. It's I feel very, very lucky, very fortunate to be able to do that, and then to work with the incredibly talented Chris Hockey from his music to his radio work, and then obviously Sauce and Corey are phenomenal as well, and it's just I like I said, I don't know how I got to be this lucky, but I feel so fortunate to be in that situation, and we'll see where it goes from here. But yeah, I mean, you see it, Kevin. It's unlike any other, I think, show on the planet for better and sometimes for worse, but mostly for better.
Well, I'll explain it this way, because people always ask me, because they know I go in there once in a while, and they're like, why do you think it has done so well? And I always try to come back to this. Like, I look at sitcoms, and for me, and everybody has their own opinion, but Seinfeld for me is my all-time favorite sitcom. And I look at those four and those personalities and how different they were, but the chemistry cannot be faked. And I think the chemistry of those main characters drove that show and carried that show. And you had, dozens and dozens of people come in and out of that sitcom, but that the secret sauce was the chemistry. And I look at you guys, and you're part of that core group, right? and that chemistry cannot be faked. And there are morning shows all over Kingdom Come, but you guys have something different. And the chemistry, I don't care what you're talking about, mermaids, movies, Vikings, I don't care what it is. That chemistry, the way you play off each other, the personalities that come out every single day cannot be duplicated. And for whatever reason, this group works. And so I love tuning in. I laugh out loud. It's the only show where I literally will be in my car and I will laugh out loud. And I think it's enhanced by the fact that I know you guys. But honestly, that chemistry is what I believe, Zach, is the difference. And so I love it. And I hope it stays just the way it is for as long as possible. In an era right now, and you know this as well as anybody, where, all over the world, especially in our markets here in the U.S., radio shows are going the opposite direction. You guys just keep climbing. That's a credit to the way you guys put that product out every day.
Yeah, and the just the way that the three main guys just blend perfectly with each other, where Sauce is bringing things that Corey and Hawk can't bring, and vice versa for all three of them. Corey and Hawk and Sauce just have such a great blend. And then, then to be able to add voices, to be a part of that myself, and then Max, and then the various, the big show elements of bringing in people like yourself, like Alexis Pearson today on a one-off, and she's great too, and having that big room feel, and every day is a different day with depending on who's coming in and who are our weekly guests. We got Ben Lieber, and he brings his stuff, and Mark Parrish is awesome. He's been a long time.
Yes, he is.
We don't have just athletes. We have athletes with really, really good personalities, and we're also just really, really good people. That care about the show and care about the people involved. So, as you mentioned, Kevin, it's an interesting time for radio for sure. But one thing I love about this, about the aspect of the morning radio show is the things that we can do that podcast still can't replicate. Obviously, all of the respect the world. We love podcasts. It's a great tool, but there's certain things you can do still with a live radio audience in terms of getting immediate reactions and comments and stuff like that and creates, I think, even a more intimate connection. Plus, it's live, so whatever we say or do, that's it. That is there's no editing, there's no going back. It's out there, and that just, I don't know, creates maybe even an added more just kind of got to be on your toes element to it that I think contributes the show to a success. I know, like I said, half of our listeners or something like that are now on the podcast, but it's really cool to still be able to go live and be a part of the airwaves, because there's just nothing like that, especially nowadays where it is certainly an art that's starting to fade.
Well stated, Zach. Well stated. Okay, final small segment of the show. We call it the Hat Trick Hot Seat. 3 questions for you. No wrong answers. We get to kind of learn a little bit about our guy, Halvy. We'll start with this one. I'm really curious on this one. When I think of you, I think of White Bear Lake. This is your spot, your town. I'm looking for a hidden jewel. It can be a donut shop. It can be a coffee shop. It can be a restaurant. For someone that doesn't travel over to White Bear here in the metro, maybe listens to our show, if you were going to recommend a fun place for them to go that's off the beaten path, what would it be?
I think the obvious answer at this point is Cup and Cone, though I don't know how hidden that is, because that's still pretty
Carter's
famous.
Spot. I love this. Tell me more.
Yes. So Cup and Cone is just a local ice cream shop that's been around forever. Kind of, in a weird spot where you could definitely tell that everything else was built and upgraded around it, but the way that it sits, it's an old building that's been around for I don't know how many decades, and it's just a great spot. The high school kids are working in the back and paying their bills with making ice cream and stuff. So Cup and Cone's great, and I would also throw a newer spot in there, the Minnesotan, which has some of the most incredible old retro T-shirts. If you like the history of of Minnesota hockey and among other sports and just towns in general. The Minnesotans a great place, and they think they just added a bar in the back or something. So it's a cool spot. So shout out them as well.
I got to get to Cup and Cone, but I went to the Minnesotan last year and got myself a long sleeve Fighting Saints t-shirt. And you're
Love
right,
it.
the nostalgia in there. For all of us guys of a certain age, man, I got to tell you, they've got it all. Civic Center stuff, Met Center stuff. Great tout on the Minnesotan, and I am going to get to Cup and Cone this summer. Okay, you've got family and friends coming over. Here's the weather starts to get warmer. You guys are going to do a barbecue, and you're going to watch a hockey movie. And they put you, because you're the hockey guy, Zach, in charge of the hockey movie. It can be any movie out there, but it's got to be your favorite hockey movie that you're going to show the group after the barbecue. Which hockey movie you plugging in?
It's the one, Kevin, that I watched on a multitude of trips to wherever northern Minnesota town my youth hockey tournament happened to be. And the one that all of us can quote nowadays, I think even a Rogers Royal quoted it on the introduction on the ice to the state tournament, and that's Miracle. It's so good, start to finish, so rewatchable, and just absolutely love every single second of it. So I'm gonna go Miracle.
I'm with you. I'm a movie guy, and it's at the top of my list. And how did you notice? And I'm certain you did because I know you well enough. During the celebrations on the ice for the Class A championship and the Double A, when they had the trophy and the team was skating around, did you hear the song they were playing?
Yes, and credit I think Paul Fletcher pulling that out there, and
so good,
so good,
Fletch. So good.
Yes.
I love it. Just goosebumps. All right. And again, we're a lot different in age. You're a lot younger than I am. So these questions always make me very curious to go back to a different time. Your very first concert, I want to know the venue and the band that you got to go see.
Oh man. That's tough. I'm trying to think here. I believe my first concert, you're not going to believe it. I was like 4 years old at the time.
Oh, wow.
And this was in the height of the Titanic movie.
Oh,
and
hell
so
yes.
I fell in love as a very young child with Celine Dion, and I saw her at a jam-packed Target Center in the round, way up in the corner, but her hair was like almost to the floor. I don't know how I have any memories that I was about as young as could be, but I would believe that is my first, at least by memory, my first concert was Celine Dion at Target Center.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with Celine Dion. I'm not going to criticize. And that song, My Heart Will Go On, it still takes my breath away. And I'm going to admit that as a man. I don't care if my buddies are listening right now and they're cringing. I love the movie and I love the song, and I'm not going to apologize for it. So I think that's a great pick. And the fact that you were 4 or 5 years old jamming to Celine Dion, I have no problem at all with that, Zach. That's why I asked the question, because that is like another Pandora's box to open that just tells such a cool story. Love that you were honest, and what a great pick. I've yet to see her in concert, but I love a lot of her music, especially that song from that movie. Hey, great chat today, my man. So proud of you. Honestly, I got to tell you, listening to you this weekend on your call with the state tournament, you have a tremendous skill, and this is really, we know about the passion. We've seen that for years. Stay with it, because big things are ahead for you. And you mentioned LaPanta's journey. He was roughly your age right now when he was doing far less than you're doing. No offense to him, and he's done just fine. So congrats on all of that success, and thank you for taking time out of it. I know a busy time for you with the morning show and the Wild games stacking up this week for being on the show today.
Gorgie, thank you. And, I mean this too, just such a big fan. The one time I get to actually watch the tourney is the Wednesday night usually, because we don't do those on the radio, and watching you and Jim work last week. You are such a great addition to that tourney roster there. And obviously some big shoes to fill with Louis going on to other things, but you certainly did it just an incredible job. I love your passion. I love your enthusiasm, and you are a great just part of this whole Minnesota hockey community, and very grateful that you are sharing your talents with the state, whether it be through 45 or, of course, FanDuel Sports Network. So thank you for having me.
Well, checks in the mail. Appreciate that, Zach. Super well done. Appreciate that, man. That is the guy we belovedly call Halvy here on Wooden Sticks. I'm back to put a close on this edition of the show next. Oh, that was certainly fun. And I will always get a little chuckle out of the Celine Dion story now whenever I see my good buddy Zach around the rink or over at the Fan. Just a terrific human being. And I love how much he cares about the game of hockey. Just a sweetheart of a guy. And I think you could hear that in our conversation today. And look forward to see where this whole thing takes him, because he's got a bright future in front of him. And he's already hit a home run with this Power Trip Morning Show, which is spectacular. If you haven't had a chance to dial them up, it's well worth your time. Every morning here in the Twin Cities from 5:30 to 9 on 100.3 KFAN. Paging forward now, we are looking ahead to Michael Russo's visit. It'll be live next week over at Insight Brewing. Beer specials galore, warm weather likely, and a food truck or food trucks with your dining pleasure. We'll have you covered. And we're going to do a deep dive on the Minnesota Wild, the injured players, where they are, and the prognosis for this year. But more importantly, we're going to get into this with Michael Russo, where this thing could be headed with the monies available for Bill Guerin and his great staff in the offseason, whenever that offseason comes. The later the better, as far as we're concerned. So a big week ahead here on the show. Once again, I want to thank Zach Halverson for taking the time to be a part of the show today. I want to encourage you to send me any requests for our show over at Twitter or X, whichever you call it these days. At Gorgamatic21 is where you can find me. And finally, if you have any family or friends or businesses that need to be elevated, or people that might need a leg up, we're always looking for new partners on the show. And the guy to get it done is Andrew Height. We call him the White Dog. All you have to do is send him a quick email, AHEYDT, aheight at talknorth.com, and we'll make that happen for you. Once again, this is Wooden Sticks. All we do is talk hockey each and every week. It's here on the Talk North Podcast Network. We'll see you at the live show next Thursday, the 20th, over at Insight Brewing. I'm Kevin Gorg. Thanks again for listening.